that you're about to make and allowing, no doubt, some questions that go along with it. This group's always interested in anything that's happening in the Finksburg area, and your organization is one of the key participants and the driving force behind it. You and Claire's participation in this group is very much appreciated and very, very helpful. So thanks for joining us tonight, and I'll turn it over to you.
Wow, well, thank you so much for that introduction. I will tell you, I hold the Finksburg group up, and I'm not just saying this, Claire can attest to it, as the model for citizen groups in Carroll County. I wish we worked with more groups like yours. Your positive energy and what we're trying to do for the Finksburg community is greatly, greatly appreciated. And I wish we could do more financially than we do. I really, truly do. And Claire is a great resource. So you're in great hands with her. And so we'll do our best to continue to see redevelopment efforts for the Finksburg area.
Well, great. Thank you very much.
Not 100% sure. Can you share a screen? Yes, you can. No, can I get screen sharing just so I can show you a few slides? It's always easier that way.
Yeah, hold on a second.
Oh, okay.
Takes me a second to give it to you. Okay. You should be able to do it now. Can you try?
Okay. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Okay, well, thank you all again for having me here this evening. Claire had told me some key topics that you all wanted to discuss this evening, so I've prepared those in this presentation. So I'm just going to go ahead and run through a few slides for you all. And feel free to stop me, ask questions. This is not formal, so feel free to stop and ask questions anytime. So a few things that we had been going over the last few months, obviously, is that comprehensive rezoning. Several properties of interest in the Finksburg area is a property known as the GEMS property, and I'll show you maps and tell you where they all are, and the notorious kennel properties. And then talk a little bit about what's happening with the residential comprehensive rezoning. I'll also talk about the potential text amendment for the I-1 district, which is our low industrial district, for the to allow self-storage facilities. And this came about because of the tennis barn off of DD Road. So I'll go into a little more detail about that. And then talk about the county's role supporting your organization and the Sustainables Community Program, which we're so excited to continue to work on, and some Bike-Ped stuff. So I'm not sure how much you all paid attention. I know Claire did inform you all of what was happening, but 3 properties under the same ownership were being proposed for the comprehensive rezoning effort. So the comprehensive rezoning effort, if I can just rewind for a minute, was us implementing the Carroll County Comprehensive Plan and the 2018 Freedom Community Comprehensive Plan. I'm not sure how many of you all were in the Finksburg group at the time, but in 2013, when your Finksburg plan was complete, at the same time, the county ended up doing a comprehensive rezoning, which made sense because it was only 640 acres and just a couple, maybe 75 to 80 properties that were actually in the core area. So this next effort was much larger. When we went through our original rezoning effort to get everyone out of our old districts into our new districts, about 1,500 properties changed naming convention and now fell under the new code, but our old code was gone, so they had to. This next phase that we were working on is what we were calling the by request. And those were properties that were not currently zoned in a commercial or industrial employment campus fashion, but were coming in and asking for those corresponding zoning districts to be consistent with the 2014 Carroll County Master Plan and the 2018 Freedom Plan. So the 3 properties in your area that were owned by the Carroll property are at Reese Road, the starting point, kind of going up over and past the landfill. So they were kind of circling the landfill and fronting one.
What are you doing?
And I'll show you some pictures too. And Planning Commission staff, we went through this whole process of applications being submitted, staff reports, reviews, going through Planning Commission, and then eventually to the board. So here are the properties I was describing. This is Bethel, this is Reese Road. These are known as the kennel properties. This area that does not have a blue outline, if you can see on my screen, and I can highlight it. These are the kennel properties. So really, this first one request was employment campus, and this was in the Westminster Environs Plan identified as an employment campus. You can see the surrounding land use categories, which is one of the main metrics we used for reviewing these changes, had an employment campus designation. This particular property, the Board of County Commissioners did feel should have an employment campus zoning category. So this property did move forward with the employment campus. To the right in the dark purple, that is currently the county landfill and the Hat Baker Firearms Facility, a recycling center, all of that stuff that's here. And then one more to the right are the next properties we'll be talking about. So again, staff gave this a favorable recommendation because it was consistent with the plans. And Planning Commission as well gave it a favorable recommendation, and the Board of County Commissioners voted and approved this rezoning request. I'm not going to go over all the additional information, but this was some of the information that we did provide in the staff report. One of the key components of moving not just this property, but the other properties forward in the of the kennel properties was its inclusion in the municipal growth area in the future and in the water and sewer master plan. When we did the Carroll County Comprehensive Plan back in 2014, at that time when these properties were designated, the property owner and the city were having discussions about expanding the city boundary, about pulling out water and sewer to that end of the county, that the developer would help. You know, again, that was, gosh, 7 years ago now. That's all changed. So in updating this, you know, they reached back out again, and the municipality, Westminster's not in a position right now. Who would have envisioned, we didn't see that in 2014, that they were going to have such water issues in the city of Westminster. So that was part of the reasoning why the one property moved forward and the other two properties did not, because just the timing's not right. So the other areas was this red area here, which was designated for commercial high. This again is Reese Road to the right, and then this is Baltimore Boulevard, Maryland 140. And these were split. So these are complete parcels in the front, but in the rear of some of these parcels was the I-1 designation as well. So for these properties, staff and Planning Commission gave them favorable recommendation, again, because of plan consistency, but the Board of County Commissioners decided not to approve them, and rightfully so, because sewer and water service could not be extended at this time, and they're just going to wait for it to become ready and more appropriate timing for development. And then again, these were the industrial properties to the back that backed up toward the landfill going up Reese Road. And the idea is if these properties did not develop as C3, it would be very hard for these to develop as I1 because any access would have come through the commercial high C3 properties. And again, because of looking at plan consistency, staff and Planning Commission gave this a favorable recommendation, but the Board of County Commissioners felt because of timing and water and sewer issues that maybe it's not appropriate to move forward with the industrial. So that did not get approved as part of this rezoning effort.
No, I'm listening to this. There's like 5 people on.
Whoever is on, if you can mute, that would be really great. We can hear you. Thank you. And then the last property of interest in the Finksburg area is this one that we're calling Gems Investment LLC. This property is located along Baltimore Boulevard and Old Westminster Pike, right as you come over the bridge from Baltimore County on the south side of the property. So you can see from the Finksburg area map, it's really kind of that gateway and abuts the reservoir area that's owned by the Baltimore City and is part of the Greater Liberty Reservoir holdings. So
can I interrupt real quickly?
Yes, please.
Just so I am sure that I'm familiar with the property. Did that property not have a considerable amount of illegal land filling during the last 10 years?
So I can't say whether it was illegal or not. There were some constraints. So I'll go to the next slide. So there are a ton of environmental constraints on this property. It's heavily forested. It seems to be the headwaters of an unnamed stream. There was an old mine there. So at the end of the day, Neil, to get to your point, I'll just kind of skip through. So anyway, staff thought it was very heavily constrained. The Planning Commission felt, and you can see as evidence on the next slide, that making the portion outlined in blue commercial and having them, original request was for the entire parcel. But then Planning Commission felt, well, let's just have it mirror what's across the way and make that commercial medium too on the request. Well, at the end of the day, after discussion, staff gave it an unfavorable recommendation. Planning Commission felt it was favorable, given if it was contracted and resembled what was across the way. But at the end of the day, the Board of County Commissioners voted to not approve that rezoning. So that did not change. It's still conservation zoning. There's a lot of concern with access to the site and that it was not well suited, and a lot of concerns with water because of its proximity to the reservoir. So Neil, does that answer your question? So at the end of the day, no worries, it didn't change anyway. And there was
thank you very much.
Yeah, there was a lot of concern too from the reservoir technical group because of its proximity to the reservoir and the stream on the site. So it just was a constrained property to begin with. I'm not sure what commercial zoning would have done for that property anyway. If there was any development potential, was very limited on that site given its topography and environmental constraints on the site.
Okay.
So that is just a quick wrap up of the comprehensive rezoning effort that we just undertook for the commercial, industrial, and employment campus. And I just focused on what was relevant to your area and a little bit beyond. Are there any other questions regarding that effort?
Question on the very first one you talked about, is that north of the landfill along 140? Did I get the right place on the map?
Yes, so the very first property that the commissioners did end up voting to approve it's just north west of the landfill.
Okay.
Right, literally past where the landfill property ends. And I think there's a self-storage, like one property past that on the right-hand side as well.
All right, seems like you go down the hills, you go past the landfill, and then you start coming back up past the self-storage, I think.
Well, this is before the self-storage because the landfill ends, and then then it's this. So again, they have an employment campus designation. Nothing has come forward yet for any plans or anything in the future. They just have the zoning designation at this point. And because it is within the municipal growth area, you know, it could be annexed into the town. It's not that far from the corporate limits. And Westminster's been creeping out its annexation, and it'll string down 140. So this would, you know, kind of complete that corridor for being all in the city of Westminster.
Lynda, if I may, because everything is very visual with me, the parcels, the kennel parcels that you described that were not approved by the commissioners, that's essentially, if I'm
trying to find them for you. Hold on, I'm going to go, sorry. I'm going to go look at all of them for you. There you go.
It's that site where the old haunted house facility is located there at Bethel and 140 and.
Well, it's past Bethel. And there wasn't a historic home on the site that was torn down. So it's right at Reese Road. So Reese Road is.
Reese, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. At least I have a a good understanding of that. Sorry.
I mean, and there is some slope there. I mean, when you go past the site, you're basically going down slope as you go southeast on Maryland 140. So you're kind of going uphill as you drive into the city of Westminster.
Right. I don't have any problem with a new use for the property, but there has to be the water and sewer to go along with it. And apparently that's been taken into consideration. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So are there any other questions regarding the comp rezoning? If not, I'll move into the text amendment. I know that there were some questions on.
Yeah, it has me a little worried.
Okay, whoops, sorry. Went too far ahead. Okay, so the proposed text amendment to the Industrial 1 District. So Clark Schaefer, on behalf of his clients, who are the ones that own the known as the tennis barn facility, submitted a proposal to allow mini or self-storage in that building. I'm not quite sure what the status is of the tennis barn, if they're still in operation right now as a gym facility, but I feel my understanding of speaking with the family and then them coming forward, and again, this is all public because we had a public meeting about it last week, was that they no longer want to operate it as a tennis barn facility and would like to perhaps see if they could do mini or self-storage in that facility. Well, when we were looking during the text portion, reviewing the industrial districts, one of the key tenets was to limit the ability of the industrial district to be eroded by non-industrial type uses. Carroll County has very little industrial land, much as many other jurisdictions. It's hard enough to get things zoned residentially changed from conservation or ag to a residential district, let alone something commercial or industrial. So we really want to try to protect the integrity of our industrial district. So again, this type of mini or self-storage use was eliminated because we felt that it was not really in the industrial vein. Warehousing, which is much different, is allowed, but we thought mini or self-storage was more of a service type business. So again, you know, this went through Planning Commission, this went in public forum, and we had many discussions about the commissioners. So when the I-1 was adopted, it was discussed to not have that use allowed. It was never allowed and industrial restricted to begin with. So it wasn't like we had a use that we pulled back and took away. It was never added in during that time. So part of that was an amendment to allow the I-1 to have self-storage. So in our discussions, one of the things that I said was, okay, well, we don't want to change what we call the use table of our zoning district. And I don't know how many of you, and I know this is kind of high technical, boring planning stuff, but have looked at our new zoning code. And I know, Neil, you used to work with our zoning code a lot when you were with the county, but we changed it from this list of different things you can do and modernized it, and actually came up with a table, I'll show you on the screen, like a table, a tabular format of uses to make it much more user-friendly. So the reason I say that is because if we were going to look at any amendments to this document and this code, we wouldn't want to do it in the use table because that just makes it too open. And should self-storage be allowed in the I-1? I think that the verdict's still out and we still haven't had these discussions yet. This is the investigative stage of going back and reevaluating the code itself. But one of the things that we did suggest was this notion of adaptive reuse. And what we mean by that is to reuse existing structures so they're not sitting vacant, maybe for a use that it wasn't intended to be used for when it was first constructed. And the reason is we don't want to see anything vacant in the Finksburg area. Much of not just Carroll County, but the region and the nation has suffered so much the pandemic, if you were already a weak business, you became weaker, and there's a lot of vacancies, especially in the quarter that we're really trying to help redevelop and using the sustainable community as a toolbox. So felt that if we could do an adaptive reuse type of proposal to really just limit it, so it had to be an existing structure. We chose the sustainable community because that's where this property happens to be located, and rein in the confines, that this would be something that could be useful and not have another vacancy in the community. Again, this is just an initial discussion. Nothing has been set in stone. This is the proposal that is being brought forward. So the process is to go to the Planning Commission. So the board said, okay, please take a look at this. That's our direction. That's what I've been asked to do based on the request from Clark Schaefer and his clients. We are going to the Planning Commission. We're going to talk about changes to the I-1. How broad should they be? Should they be more limited, or maybe nothing at all? Maybe that is the recommendation for the Planning Commission. We like how our I-1 is. Board, we recommend that you don't change anything. Now it's up to the board ultimately if they do decide that they want to make any revisions to the zoning text. So we'll have some work sessions with the board. They'll have a public hearing, and then they'll have a discussion decision and eventually adoption. So that's the thought process behind that and where this originated. So are there any questions regarding this request?
Can I give you a comment instead of a question?
Maybe, it's only if it's a good comment.
Of course, I think most of us are probably very familiar with that site. And it would seem that that reuse would not require any additional water or sewer capacity, which is a good thing. And I'll say that, you know, personally, I'm for adaptive reuse. My only concern that I would like to have taken into consideration is that there could be additional traffic impact at the impacted DD Road and Route 140, which is not a particularly pleasant place as it is right now. And that traffic use might have a negative impact on the other businesses that are located further back DD Road, which are more heavy industrial. But that's all things to be considered. Generally, I can't say that I have an opposition to it, so long as it is specific to that site and not generally to Finksburg in general.
No, so, well, you know, we can't do specific site zoning. That'll almost be a tantamount to contract zoning, meaning that, you know, the developer or the owner has contracted with the county, say, hey, this is what we're going to do and this is what it is. So we can't do that. That's not allowed.
Right.
I think what the way that this legislation and proposed text amendment reads is that we are really trying to say, look, we don't, this community is struggling. We don't want any more vacancies. We want to continue investment. We're not changing the shell of the building. I don't think even parking requirements would change. So for all intents and purposes, it would look very similar and pretty much behave from a vehicular standpoint, we feel, in a very similar manner. And hopefully would have more of a benefit, but would also do no harm to the community. Again, we don't want to see anything vacant. So this is, again, the first step. And Neil, I appreciate your comment and something we'll bring back to Planning Commission. To be honest, right now, I'm not sure if they would even have to go. They may have to do a minor revised site plan, but I'm not even sure if they're fitting into that space. There's a lot of discussion about what would be necessary if they're just retrofitting an exact site, an exact space. And I think they said that they would have to do very limited work to the interior even to be able to do the self-storage. It's actually the way they feel it's set up is pretty ideal for that. I know Claire did reach out to the applicant and the tennis barn owners to see if they would want to participate this evening, but I believe they had other obligations. So keep staying tuned, and Claire will keep reporting back to you on this text amendment.
Good.
So I had a quick question.
Yes.
So what you're basically saying is that you're going to take that barn, which is a big metal fab building, and that would become the storage area. They'd probably put in different lockers inside or something? Is that so? It would stay in that same structure and everything?
That is our understanding, is that they do not want a new structure. And so I would say this, when at least as staff right now, given where we are with the text amendment, our proposal would be for them to keep it in the already existing building footprint and retrofit the interior for a self-service storage facility, to not expand it beyond that, or else then it's a complete, then we might as well just have allowed it as I-1, plain and simple.
Right,
that's not what our intent is. At the end of the day, that's what we're going to be looking to do as staff and advocating with the Planning Commission. However, it's not our ultimate say. So I would just suggest, if you see, keep paying attention to Planning Commission. Claire will report back. If you see things maybe not happening as you all envision, please reach out to your elected officials and let them know, because they're the ultimate decision maker in this process.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay.
Lynda, can I ask a quick question?
Yes, please.
And it's more in the form of a rumor.
Okay. Oh, I don't know if I can do rumor.
Well, the 7-Eleven at Sandy Mount in 140, the rumor is it's going to move to DD Road in 140 in front of Mudgett's. Any truth to that?
I've heard that. There's been no development proposals that have come through. We haven't even had, I'm going to be 100% honest, we haven't even had a pre-submittal meeting on that. So if something's happening, it's 100% very rumor. Maybe there's some discussions that people have heard about. We have not heard of anything in the county.
Last night at the church council meeting at Mount Zion, that was a very popular topic.
Huh, so I'll look into that. I haven't seen anything.
Well, I hope it's not true, but I just kept my mouth shut and listened. Thank you.
That site is a challenged site, unfortunately. I think there's a lot of well water issues, contamination from some prior prior issues nearby. I don't want to say anything more than that, but there's some, it's a tough site.
Right.
So that's what's been struggling. When I know it wasn't Shake Shack. Oh my goodness. Who was it that wanted to come in?
Right.
Once upon a time, McDonald's was looking at that. Yeah,
McDonald's.
It was like around the McDonald's time, maybe 2015, 2016. Oh goodness. It was like a Shake Shack, but it wasn't McDonald's, but McDonald's did too. So it's been a challenging site to have to develop. And I think there's been some water issues.
Yeah, if not water, sewer, no doubt.
Well, right. I mean, the septic.
The restaurant, yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I know that's what happens to Arby's all the time, and why the 91 shopping Finksburg Plaza is having difficulties too, just trying to maintain things. And I know Neil was back in the county then, but many, many moons ago, there was supposed to be water and sewer in that area. And for whatever reason, the capital was never put forward and the lines never installed, and then this treatment never put in. And then we run up against the wall now of all of the total maximum daily loads and getting discharge permits for putting in a sewer treatment plant and budgetary constraints. So it's very complex. So that's what Finksburg's kind of developed almost in that way, but never had the infrastructure to fully support a complete development of that community and what it should have really developed as.
Lynda, I'll ask, just because it's a bit of a standard question at discussions like this, about the old post office, if there's anything happening there, any thoughts, anybody pursuing any sort of development?
No, unfortunately not. Yeah, we have not heard of anything. And again, we do talk with our development review, and that's where we processed through, but there's not even been a pre-submittal, which means that we kind of hear about it prior to, they were like testing the waters before they come in, and there hasn't been any movement in quite some time. I think, businesses are gun shy of raw development right now, given everything that's happening in the world. Sure.
Yeah,
the last I passed by the old post office, it was being pretty much used as a used truck lot. So I'm hoping the zoning administrator would take a look at that.
seen that, and if there is a complaint, I mean, so as you know, it's complaint driven. We don't report.
Oh yeah.
And it's tough. It's tough to report. So if you see anything, I would urge you all as a group, please report something that you feel is not happening, and the county will look into it.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a nicer looking structure in the area for one thing, and to your point earlier about trying to avoid vacancies.
Yeah,
and it's a vacant building right now and sitting there, and it's
nothing
not
deteriorates quicker than a vacant building.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You don't. I mean, we don't want ridiculous uses, but you also do want someone in there just to maintain the integrity of the building. And I will say the adaptive reuse idea came from a law passed not many years ago that's in the land use article, allowing jurisdictions to, in some ways, override their own zoning to allow this adaptive reuse in these types of situations. We're looking to codify it though, and look and testing it out to see if that works in our county, as opposed to enacting the state law for adaptive reuse. So that's where that idea came from. And I think, it has some validity to it. So we'll see how it works out, and this will be the test. And if it doesn't work and it's not what we want it to be, we won't exercise it anywhere else. I think it's to be determined. But again, I'd rather you all see something that looks just like what you have now than a vacancy. So a couple of things Claire asked me to speak about was the county's role in supporting your organization with sustainable communities, talking about the facade improvement program and the welcome sign. So I'm going to go the welcome sign first, because that's an easy one. We're having a hard time, and I know you all too are finding land to private ownership to put the welcome sign. I think the challenges with State Highway and working with them was it was too much, and they're just not in a position to have any property to put a welcome sign. So that's something we're working on. We did request it for our budget to look at putting the sign, getting some funding for the sign. I know our economic development, they had a lot of plans to work with you all, but then COVID hit. So part of it was they were going to help you all design the welcome sign through their resources. Claire, can you tell me, where did that end up with Jack and Paige? I can't recall. I apologize.
We actually did get some renderings.
Okay.
Yeah, Josh Cohen prepared, I don't know, three renderings, I think, for us to take a look at. And I've had several conversations with him. We're sort of at a stalemate trying to figure out a location, so some more detailed estimating can take place around, what's it going to cost, and can we get authorization and approval, and all the rest of that. But we do have some renderings to take a look at that I think get us sort of in the ballpark of what we generally had in mind for a sign that, at least my view, has always been something that would be sort of the anchor for Finksburg by stating this is Finksburg. Some designation right along 140 that says you actually have arrived now to beautiful downtown Finksburg.
It's a start.
We're trying to find that spot, yeah. And we thought that, as a first step, or as any step in sustainable community, once you start to do some upward development, making some improvements in an area, as you and Claire certainly well know, hopefully it becomes addictive, and people around it want to join forces and do the same or do something similar, and it really helps in that regard. So we thought the sign was a rather important element to try to start with.
No, I think that's a good tangible project to begin with, and so we'll continue to work with you and see what we can do to make that happen. Again, I think the key is finding a willing landowner to partner with that would be willing to host the sign for you all. The other thing is we wanted to talk about the facade improvement program. And I do feel like this is a good program for our domino effect within the community. And it could be twofold and coupled with our gateway tax credit. So if you recall, if you're within the gateway area, and I know Claire's probably sharing you a map, I don't have one with me this evening, of that gateway area, which is really kind of like the main Maryland 140 corridor. If you're within that area and you do substantial improvements, working with our economic development that increase your property values, that they would not get, they would offset the increase in what your property taxes would be for so many years to help offset the cost of what that facade improvement would be. As well as utilizing that as one tool. And then the other tool is the actual facade improvement program. And so some things that Claire and I talked about with regard to that is, I know that your organization did not want to be the main deciders of who got the program or who went into the program. But I think like what we were talking about, and Claire, just jump in here at any time, because you're really the one who works with the sustainable community, that we would, help formulate a work group to take these applications and review them and process them. Did I articulate that correctly, Claire? You're on mute, Claire. Claire, we can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Well, Lynda, since we can't hear Claire, if I can,
yes.
I don't want to monopolize the conversation tonight. When I did work with the county, let's say 15 years ago, there was a considerable effort to offer facade improvements to businesses along the key area along 140. Mm-hmm. It didn't move forward for multiple reasons.
And how was that program administered? Like I'm not familiar with that. I know we tried to do design standards, and that was more of the higher ups that said we don't want to impose that.
Yeah, that was my program. But there were actual designs made by a landscape architect for key properties along there. I would hope that they could be found again and possibly implemented in this program. Starting with, I'll say, the building that has the
pawn shop?
It doesn't matter. There were several properties there, and designs were offered, but nothing became of it. The business community was never brought into the discussion, and this is something that I think that the current economic development department could be very effective in. Particularly in offering tax incentives to these businesses to make improvements that would make a huge difference. And once some of these improvements are made, I think it's going to catch on with other businesses, because there's going to be essentially a map for them to increase their property values. And that's as much time as I want to take up with it. But there is some work back in the county that could be dug up and possibly used.
So the facade improvement program, like I said, would be kind of twofold. So actually we would be looking at doing state grants through the Sustainable Communities Toolbox for the applicants. So, and then whatever cash they would outlay for any improvements, hopefully could be offset then through the gateway tax credit, were our thoughts with that. I would say I wish the county had more money to do that. I think that's going to be limited. I think we can offer some design help through economic development. And again, if we are able at some point in the future, maybe in the fall, to have something at River Downs, we can go back to our original plan and talk about what we can do from an economic development standpoint and what they can offer up in terms of assistance. So between the county, the state, the owner, that we can all work together to move forward on doing something.
Yes.
Yeah, the Sustainable Community Program that we had prepared for last year we had pretty high hopes of pretty good turnout. We thought that we had an awful lot of good information to communicate, a lot of key individuals in and around the county, and including key people from the government to attend and be supportive of the plan and the program. All of that hoping to stimulate interest on the part of the business community to become engaged. And with the financial resources that are available to them right now, that's what really needs to get presented to businesses, so that they know and understand that nobody's asking them to do something with their own money exclusively, that there is some help and support coming from a couple of different directions potentially that can really enhance the look of the corridor. But the real key point is the look of the corridor improvement benefits the businesses. I mean, one goes hand in hand, I believe.
Right. Yeah.
Out of trying to connect that concept with individuals to try to get them started.
No, absolutely. And hopefully, again, we can try to kick that effort off. And I do agree with you. And I think, like we said, it will build upon itself. So we can just get one project underway. And it doesn't have to be huge. I mean, it can be paint, maybe some awnings, maybe some landscaping that give that outward appearance of an improvement that elevates the area. No one wants to be low bar. So wherever you set the bar, people will aspire to. And once you set the bar at a certain level, better businesses will want to come in because they'll see, oh, there is some investment in the community. I just think we're in a really awkward time now, unfortunately.
We are.
So hopefully in another year or two, we can really get this moving. But I would like to see us do something in the community, because I don't want you to lose your designation. It's a 5-year program. You have to reapply after 5 years. And part of that would be, do we have demonstrable products? What have we has happened in the community? I'm not saying they would do that, but I also don't want to take that risk and that chance. And I would really, various reasons. And it's a great community, and there's a lot of momentum with you all in this group that I think we can do some great things, but it's just been bad timing. Bad timing.
Yeah, clearly it's been a challenge. I mean, it's a little bit of, you have to be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
We got our wish, we got the designation. Now, what do you do with it? We have to do something positive with it. And that's what we're struggling with. We had a bit of a start with the owners of the Watts Center.
Yes.
In terms of stimulated interest there, which I know that you're aware of. And that turned a little bit cold because of COVID, which is understandable. Businesses are very sensitive as to what's going to happen tomorrow. Trying to make plans for the future is a hard thing right now for an awful lot of businesses, just not knowing what tomorrow is going to bring.
And I will say this too, and I'm not comparing groups, but a good model for you all to look at. And I know you're a little bit different in the setup, is the Reisterstown Improvement Association. They've been doing really great things. They are a sustainable community. They just got their Main Street, Maryland designation. They opened a welcome center outside of this coffee shop, and they are really trying to bring the community together. They have grants for facade improvements. I steer clear to talk to them about some things because they're not incorporated either. And I know you feel that's been one of your biggest obstacles, is not being incorporated. Well, Reisterstown isn't either. I think the difference is, though, is they have Maryland Main, they have Main Street, 140X, much differently there than it does toward Finksburg. Finksburg is a true divided highway. People are flying through there going somewhere. And with the 795 bypass, it's taken that type of traffic off of Maryland 140 and Main Street, Reisterstown. So traffic that does go on Main Street, it's a little bit slower, it's walkable. So they do have other opportunities that Finksburg doesn't have. So I think we need to capitalize maybe more on that motor center of the Finksburg area, and what can we do to attract those people off the roads into businesses. But they're also very active, and I know you have a great group, and I think, from staff, we have a very small staff. So I'm going to give a pitch here. We would love your help more. If there's grants that you see that you want, there's grants that you can participate in as the Finksburg group through sustainable communities, please let us know. We would want your help and expertise in preparing those. we're down 3 people in our staff right now. So, and we have a lot of obligations for a small group. So we want to help you, but we can't do it without your help either. So if you pitch us ideas, if you all are doing the research, if there's grants that you want to apply for and you need some help carrying it over the finish line, we're there for that. But unfortunately, I just can't. I would love to give Claire, and I'm sure she would love to work with you 24/7, but we just don't have the bandwidth to do that. So keep bringing.
Understand. That's great. Yeah.
And we want to help you. We want to be a partner. So we'll do what we can. And if there are projects that we need county funding for, like we'll go to bat and put it in a CIP and take it up to the commissioners. As long as we have your support, because we're going to have to say, hey, Skip, back there, he said this is a good thing. So it doesn't happen without all of us working together. And I think the commissioners definitely see that. Even in tight times like this, I think for projects worthwhile, they will want to, you know, see it happen, and we'll do our best to help you leverage monies and put proposals in and use what we can with our resources too.
No, that's good, Lynda. Thank you. Yeah, and we certainly appreciate that and enjoy the relationship that we have with the entire county organization. Your department in particular is especially helpful. Commissioner Weaver has also been a big supporter of what we do and what we're trying to accomplish as well. So that's much appreciated.
Well, good. Well, maybe we can also have an offline conversation about reapproaching Watts again and kind of maybe reel them in a little bit. I think, you know, if we talk about this facade improvement program and some ways to leverage maybe some one-on-ones with some key people from your community group and us, and maybe even a Commissioner Weaver coming, talking and saying, hey, look, here's what we can do. Now's a good time to move forward. Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, that sounds good. And I think Claire was telling me you have a new business too in that Watts Center. Claire, is that where the juice place is? She's off the mute. Is that the juicer? You're still muted. I don't know what's right. Is that? Yes, it's the juicer. So there's a company that's there now that is producing juices, like for juice cleanses and things like that, which is like a hot thing right now. So like, so you're good. Good businesses that are in there, the All Good nursery and stuff like that. So yeah, is the carpet place still there and in operation? Do we know? I'm not sure. That's one thing that we started to do, but then we couldn't drive with 2 people in cars, and it's hard for one person to go out. Yeah. Windshield surveys. So we would have a driver and a planner, and we were going through to see who's in business and who's out of business. But we have rules in the county now about people riding in the same vehicle. So it's hard for one person to drive. So we're trying to do some evaluations of what's closed and what's not in your community to try to get some good baselines for you all. For several of our meetings, the owners of the carpet place there joined us and really wanted to become engaged. And then, you know, once again, COVID hit and we weren't having in-person meetings, and I don't know where they might be at this particular point in time. Right.
Yeah, they're Joe and Allison there. They're still in business.
They are? Good.
Yes, they are.
Good.
Good.
That's always good to hear.
So just like a couple last key points, and then again, whatever questions you have for me, is that Claire mentioned that you all wanted to talk about the Bike-Ped Plan. And just what's happening. Unfortunately, I think there's just a small trail portion in the Finksburg area near, I think, the former distillery building, kind of going off into the reservoir lands. But we are working on projects. We're doing the Patapsco Regional Greenway, which is the Sykesville to McKeldin spur. And then also we have some future safe routes to schools projects. There's no school other than Sandy Mount, but that's out of the sustainable community. And that is for sidewalk projects. So kids can walk to and from school in a safe manner. So we've been working on that Old Washington Road outside of Westminster, and then Johnsville Road near Liberty High and Eldersburg Elementary, as well as 2 projects that we put into the requested CIP, which is the Capital Improvement Program for the county, for Freedom Avenue, and then one further down on Karen Drive in the Eldersburg area, so they can walk to Freedom Elementary or Eldersburg Elementary, filling in those gaps. So if there are additional gaps that you all feel, maybe programs like the sidewalk retrofit program through the state, maybe we can look at some of those as well. And we've been doing, you know, again, reviewing development proposals for consistency with the Finksburg Sustainable Community Plan, the Finksburg Plan itself, and then working on some online interactive mapping for these Bike-Ped programs as well, trying to get that up and running. So that is it. So are there any questions? I'm going to stop sharing my screen now.
Skip, Lynda, I have to thank you very much. It's been a very informative meeting. It's a shame we had to do it by Zoom, but it's very much appreciated.
Yeah, it's always a good topic, always of interest. And Lynda and Claire, as I said early on, have been vitally important to this organization for a long time. And it's great to hear directly from them as to what's taking place and what the processes and procedures are that guide development in the area.
Absolutely.
Question, which is not exactly Finksburg, but not too far away, is how's the 32 construction going in Eldersburg and south? Is that coming along? I haven't been out there very much lately.
The one at Bennett or further down where the armory, the new armory?
Yeah, kind of near the armory there, and you know, from 26 going south.
So it's going well because of the armory going in, but again, it's kind of like these fits and starts. So you're double lane, then you go down to single lane, and then you're back to double lane. So with the armory coming in from 26, I think down to maybe Springfield, they're going to be it's going to be dualized, but that's it. After that, it's going to be some time before it takes it to 70 for dualization. And then at Bennett and 32 in Johnsville, they're doing some realignments and some widening there and some adding some turn lanes in. And State Highway had a little bit of a pause because they had to move some infrastructure they weren't anticipating, but that project's fully moving forward right now. So there are steady improvements happening to that area for 32.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, any other questions?
I was wondering if you have an update on the Patapsco Greenway. Where does that whole project stand, as well as the Carroll part?
Claire, she's the one working on that. That's her main thing. Can you fix your unmute, or you can't? Have you unplugged your earphones? Okay. Well, I mean, the Greenway itself, so that was the one thing with the Patapsco Regional Greenway, the McKeldin to Sykesville loop. That is something that is with a design group coming up with a future design for that. But other than that, I'm not quite sure 100% the status of where they are. And we and Carroll just got design money to look at the spur from Freedom Park down to meet that McKeldin to Sykesville spur. So we're working with Baltimore Metropolitan Council to continue design efforts. I don't know when construction will occur for any of it, but we are moving forward with that.
Would that be a path from Sykesville along the river to McKeldin? Is that what the idea is?
Well, yeah, eventually it'll go from Sykesville down to the inner harbor, or not the inner harbor, to the Patapsco River. And so the main focus right now that's out of design and actually going toward construction is the Guinness section towards Guinness Brewery and Elkridge. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not, but okay, I'll look around.
Yeah, so then eventually that is all going to come out. So that'll be a great economic driver for Sykesville and Carroll County, that you can go from Sykesville to the Patapsco River, hit these cool spots along the way. I mean, Sykesville's a great start or a great finish, depending on how you want to look at it. There's neat restaurants there, you know, there's the distillery, there's places to eat and things like that, nice shops. And then it's a destination. Then you can, or you could start there, ride your bike all the way down to the Guinness, or go further. So there's some great destinations along that route. So once it finishes, it'll be really nice for the region in general. So if you haven't checked it out, I believe it's on their website for the Patapsco Regional Greenway. So Carroll said the Carroll section will be a multi-use towards Sykesville and will be paved towards McKeldin. And then once it gets into McKeldin, it'll be a a natural surface, with design efforts beginning in February of this year through December. So that's the hope.
Oh, so I guess that was resolved. I know the McKeldin part was going to be asphalt at one point. I know Sierra Club was heavily against any asphalt in McKeldin. So it sounds like it's going to go back to a trail, which, are they going to do anything with the trail? Because that does make it somewhat less accessible. I know that was the other side. We'd like people in maybe in a wheelchair to be able to take it, but obviously not if it's a trail in the woods.
Right. Again, I mean, I'm sorry, Mike, I don't have a ton of information on that. I haven't been intimately involved. I know there are always some ADA issues, especially when you're getting federal money for trails and things like that. So I know that they're working with a good design firm to try to move that forward in the appropriate way. So they are working out the kinks.
Yeah, I would love to see it. It's such a huge project that's really neat, the kind of thing we just don't do that often around here. So.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a great project. Good. Well, any other questions for Lynda? Okay, Lynda, thank you again very much for your time tonight and all of the information that you provided to us. It's always very helpful, keeping us abreast of what's going on.
No pressure. I really do hold you all up as a model group in Carroll County, and I wish we had more groups like you. You guys are amazing to work with, and you've done some really good stuff. So let's keep the momentum. Don't lose the faith. It will happen.
Good.
Absolutely.
Just a quick comment about future planning. Next month, for those people that are on the call right now, next month we have the school superintendent, Steve Lockard, making a presentation, and no doubt he's going to have an awful lot to say about what his challenges have been over the past, well, almost a year now, I guess we're dealing with this now. And so he's going to be the presenter at the February 25th meeting. I also got an update from the library that public meetings are not going to be allowed in the Finksburg library now, at least through March. So who knows? We'll just have to play it by ear the way we're doing much of life nowadays and see what occurs. So I don't know when we'll get back together again. This is a wonderful venue for trying to get together. We're fortunate to have this level of technology so that we can meet and greet one another and learn from one another this way. But it doesn't take the place of being in person, I don't believe. At least that's my opinion. So hopefully we'll be able to get back to that sometime in the not too distant future. Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody. And have a good evening and stay safe. Bye now.
Thanks, guys.